مرحبا وأهلا بكم في برنامج داخل واشنطن. معكم مضيفكم روبرت ساتلوف. قليلة هي القضايا في مضمار السياسة الأمريكية التي تثير الجدل قدر التعليم. ففي النهاية يتعلق الأمر بأطفالنا. ماذا ينبغي أن يتعلم الطلاب؟ المزيد من الرياضيات؟ المزيد من العلوم؟ المزيد من اللغات الأجنبية؟ هل ينبغي أن تتبع المدارس في أنحاء البلاد نفس المنهج الدراسي أم ينبغي أن تتخذ المدارس المحلية القرار بشأن ما ستدرسه؟ كيف نكافئ معلمين وفق أعوام الخبرة أم نجاح طلابهم؟ ومع التمويل المحدود هل ينبغي أن ننفق المزيد على الكتب أم التكنولوجيا؟ وإن كانت المدارس تملك قدرا محدودا من المال فهل ينبغي أن تقلل من الدروس الموسيقى أم الرياضة؟ كيف نضمن حصول الطلاب من المدن الأكثر فقرا على نفس التعليم العام مثل طلاب من المناطق الغنية؟ هل توجد إجابات واضحة على كل هذه الأسئلة؟ لا. ولكن المختصون بالتعليم يتعين عليهم مجابهة هذه الأسئلة كل يوم. مستقبل بلادنا، مستقبل عائلاتنا على المحك. اليوم في برنامج داخل واشنطن سنلتقي بواحد من أبرز المختصين بالتعليم في البلاد، وهو مدير منطقة تعليمية ناجحة جدا في ولاية ماريلاند، دكتور مايكل مارتيرانو. Welcome back to Dakhel, Washington. There are few issues in American politics that connect Americans across our country like education. How do we teach our kids? And to discuss how we teach our kids and the system in which they are taught, I'm delighted to welcome today Dr. Michael Martorano. Thank you very much for joining us.
Delighted to be here, sir.
So you are the superintendent of Howard County Schools in the state of Maryland. What is the job of a superintendent?
The job of the superintendent, a modern-day superintendent, is to oversee the educational system in Howard County, 56,000 young people, providing a top-notch quality educational system to ensure that children are college and career ready. But at the same time, taking care of basic needs to make certain that students are safe, feel comfortable in the learning environment, but the pressure to have a quality educational system where all young people are achieving is the primary goal.
So in say, Howard County, what is the relationship between the superintendent of schools and the county executive and anybody else who tries to govern in this region?
Absolutely. So people need to understand that the superintendency is a highly political position. It's an unelected position, but a highly political position because the majority of funding that comes to the educational system comes from the local government, from state entities, as well as from the federal government. So we have to have a very positive relationship to ensure that the resources that are dedicated to young people are coming at that very positive level. So the relationship has to be productive, it has to be collaborative, and it has to be very meaningful because we're trying to advance through the aspect of influence and collaboration, better quality education for our children.
So most of our viewers come from parts of the world where education is one of those issues that is determined and guided from the capital, from the center. In America, we traditionally have a very different approach, where, as you implied, local government is most important. How does that system work?
So there's a big distinction regarding what is defined as local control and state control or federal control. Oftentimes in America, in many cases in America, where the so-called aspect of where the true meaningful approach towards education occurs at the local level, local impact, local control. So as a superintendent, I have to navigate between the county executive, the county council, the local board of education, which is ultimately my boss, who governs the school system as elected individuals, and then through the state delegation as well. So you have to be able to operate within that political environment, and once again, to advocate for funding, to advocate for needs, to ensure that the young people's needs are being met, not just some but all, and looking at that differentiated way of funding to make certain those needs are being met.
So what is the most serious problem that you have to deal with?
Well, right now, the serious problem I contend with is oftentimes the competing variables for funding, making certain in my aspect of the position is to ensure that every child is receiving a high quality education. Because we acknowledge that in America that not all of our children come from means. Many of our young people come from poverty. And so from my position, I have to ensure that resources are allocated in a differentiated way. Some students need more supports than others. Again, to ensure that when a child graduates, that they're college ready to go on to college, that they're ready to go into a career, and that we have the true feeling and belief that all children can and will learn, and that every one of our children is entitled to a high quality education. So my top job, my top role is as a primary educator in Howard County, as an educational leader within the state and within the nation, is to ensure equity, to provide a quality and meaningful education for all of our children, not just some, but all of them.
So let's break that down, because there's lots of different sort of educational policy issues that come under the heading of equity that you just mentioned. How do you determine, how do you deal with paradoxes like should the incentive or should the decision be to provide as much enrichment for the best students, or to make sure that students from less advantaged areas get catch-up support so that they can have the same opportunities as, say, students from more affluent areas? How do you decide where the marginal dollar gets spent?
Well, and that's the true definition from my vantage point of equity. Believing that all children can and will learn, not some, but all. And so if you look at each child as an individual child amongst that continuum of 56,000 students that are in Howard County, every child has meaning, every child matters, and then providing an individual plan for each one of those young people to ensure that they are achieving at the highest levels. And again, going back to equity and inequality, equal is not equity in terms of the distribution of funds. So if I were just to provide equal distribution of funds to educate each child, that doesn't take into account the individual learning gaps that may be there for young people. So how do we look at that child individually, starting at birth, when that achievement gap and opportunity gaps start happening based upon the family of which a child is born into, those poverty indicators are alive and well, and how do we scaffold a program when they enter into the pre-K through 12 system that ensures that we're providing additional support for children who need additional support in reading or math. And so as a child moves through that system, that vertical connection, that vertical system from pre-K through 12, that we intersect with them throughout by using data to monitor their progress and provide additional supports of interventions, additional programs to keep them on the track so that they can graduate. Because from my vantage point, if a child drops out of high school and they don't make it, they're destined for further challenges within life. So I'm driven by the passion to ensure that every child makes it across that line of graduation so that they can be successful in society.
You almost used a phrase which was well celebrated in America in the last few years about no child left behind.
Right.
You didn't quite use the phrase.
Didn't quite use it. It was there.
It was there. That phrase has acquired certain connotations.
Right.
But generally, where are you or where are professional educators today in the debate in terms of national testing and how much monitoring and how much uniformity should there be coast to coast with the learning targets for our children?
So most recently, I've served in the role of superintendent for the last 13 years. I was also state superintendent in the great state of West Virginia. And so my interfacing there was more at the federal level, where the policies intersect regarding accountability. So those three main prongs, ensuring that every state, every school system in America has high standards. So there's where the debate about Common Core started coming into place. But I've always wanted to make certain, whether we're talking about Common Core or whatever standards we're talking about, that they're high standards. in the language arts and mathematics arena, and that those are clearly communicated in a consistent way to all of our educators within our system. And then wrapping that around with assessments that monitor the fact, are we delivering what we're saying we're truly teaching, to make certain that every child is receiving, again, that high quality education. By the end of that school year, all students should be able to do the following items as they progress throughout the system, and not promoting individuals until they have that mastery of concept, because there's a lot of issues regarding social promotion. So once we have those standards in place, using the right assessments to monitor, are we doing what we said we're doing within our classrooms? And then again, using that data that we get back on terms of student performance in a way to provide additional supports. So through an accountability system, how's our graduation rate look? How are our students performing in mathematics? How are they performing in reading language arts? What's their attendance look like? I mean, what's that whole level of engagement within the school experience that makes a young person successful? So those three prongs of standards, assessments, and accountability are critical, that are part of the accountability system in terms of the aspects of what's expected from the federal government, that intersects at the state level, which ultimately comes home in terms of implementation at the local level. So as a local superintendent, I'm expected to monitor those standards. I'm expected to have an accountability system that monitors the fact of are we achieving what we said, and assessments that play into that overall accountability. But the challenge is how far that pendulum swings. And are we going too far just for accountability for federal dollars? Because I'm a purist in the sense of curriculum. I want to use assessments as a way to guide instruction, to provide more supports to young people. So how do we provide that balance in terms of accountability for the allocation of resources, but also as a true measure of defining children's ability and their ability to progress, and using that to provide more supports.
So where do you think the pendulum is swinging at the moment?
I think it's now swinging back to a more moderate level. Over the last several decades, there was a high level regarding multiple choice questions, truly didactic in terms of the approach, with the implementation of No Child Left Behind. Created a lot of concern that basically said that if you didn't reach certain targets, that basically put us on a trajectory where all schools in America were going to be failing. I think now with the accountability systems of which we're using, they're taking into account non-traditional measures, things that educators have been saying that really matter in terms of the students' performance, things that I just touched upon. Graduation rates. I mean, that's the one that we really need to focus on as a nation. The more young people that drop out of school creates this huge gap in terms of illiteracy. It contributes to the pipeline to prison process. If you look at our prisons in America, they're populated with individuals who are illiterate, who have dropped out from high school. That's unconscionable. And if you look at the funding that's associated with prisons versus what we provide for pre-K through 12 education, it's almost like $35,000 we spend as a nation to incarcerate. But I believe right now, for the first time, that we're at an all-time high for our per pupil expenditure as a nation, pre-K through 12. It's $10,800. But look at the difference: $35,000 to incarcerate, $10,800 to educate. It should be the other way around when you think about it, those preventive actions. So when you're looking at where I'm talking about this accountability system being more moderate, it's come into play where we're looking at graduation rates, we're looking at attendance, we're looking at school climate data, things that impede regarding the child's development throughout that pre-K through 12 experience. The academic measures are extremely important. I'm not here to say that they aren't. I'm strongly a supporter of the academic achievement, but there are other things that contribute to a child's learning experience, and those accountability systems are now taking that into account.
Okay, we're going to just talk more about policy toward education with Michael Martorano in just a moment. Our guest today again is Dr. Michael Martorano. He is widely recognized as one of the most outstanding leaders in local public education in America today. He is currently the superintendent of the public school system in Howard County, Maryland, a region between Washington, D.C. and Baltimore. That, as he said, includes 76 schools and more than 55,000 students. He has 3 decades experience in public education, serving as superintendent of schools for the entire state of West Virginia, superintendent of schools in a different county in Maryland, St. Mary's County, and director of elementary school education in Howard County. Earlier in his career, he had one of the most demanding jobs in public service. He was a high school principal. Once awarded Superintendent of the Year in Maryland, Dr. Martorano received his bachelor's and master's degree from the University of Maryland and his doctorate of education from Nova Southeastern University. So let me come back to the questions of school governance and money.
Right.
You never have enough money.
No.
So how do you make decisions between, say, books or technology, arts and theater or sports? What role do parents play? What role do teachers play? And ultimately, the buck stops, I guess, with you. How do you finally make these decisions?
Well, the process that we're going through right now, I live in the budget cycle constantly, month after month, is defining those priorities. What do we expect that we want for our young people every day? And so the buck stops for me with the Board of Education. It's the expectation of the superintendent to develop a budget that defines the needs of the school system based upon a variety of factors. That's qualitative data, quantitative data, input from our parents, input from our community, ensuring that we have class sizes that meet the needs for our students to receive that instruction, providing additional scaffolding and support of additional support staff members to meet those needs in a differentiated way, advancing programs that meet the needs, again, of our students. We have many of our students who are highly abled as far as academic achievement. We have students who need additional supports, and we have students who need severe supports as well, extreme supports, I should say. But every one of those children matters. And so providing those resources and allocated in a way as we move the school system forward, each child forward, that those supports are there so that, again, that every child moves forward in the positive way. And so through rich dialogue, there's a lot of advocates in Howard County. There's a lot of parent groups who are extremely engaged, and it's one of the reasons I love working there, because parent involvement is at a very, very high level of engagement, and the expectation that we maintain a very high quality school system. Howard County has one of the finest school systems in America, and it's a real gem within our overall county as far as quality of life. Individuals move there because of the education, so there's this expectation that we will maintain that high level of advocacy. But it's not an open checkbook. When I go to the county executive and the county council, there is a huge level of accountability. I have to defend every dollar within there and advocate and influence to get the support necessary from our elected officials. But ultimately, again, using an agenda of equity, making certain that budget is built in a way that it's the children's budget to meet those needs so that they can be successful.
Now, one of the big national debates, one that is a favorite of our Secretary of Education, has to do with vouchers, private school vouchers, namely giving school choice.
Right.
The idea that that parents could take the amount of money, you just mentioned $10,000 or so dollars, and use it for a private school. Critics, of course, say that this will steal money away from the public system. Do you have a view on this?
Well, I do, and I've worked on that level at a variety of different levels, at the state level as well as at the local level. Charter schools are embedded within that conversation. Vouchers are embedded within those conversations. But I'm going to drift right back to my immediate issue of where I'm working now in Howard County. We offer a very robust set of offerings within our school system where, through the public dollars, we are offering options and choices. I'm advancing programs currently within our current school year to provide more involvement with dual enrollment, engaging our community college so students can receive college credit while they're in high school, basically moving through the educational experience and receive an AA degree, an Associate's Arts degree, as they graduate from high school. So because of the fact that we have robust offerings within our system, the whole aspect of privatization and charter schools is not as a major topic within Howard County. Oftentimes those are areas where the equity is not provided at the highest level, where students within a district are not receiving the highest quality of education as they are in other geographical areas of the state or the county, and those ways are advanced. But they do take away from the public funding because public dollars need to go to the public schools. And when you're taking issues regarding privatization, it does have an opportunity, and it does regardless of how you look at it, takes dollars away from the public schools that now have to be spread more thinly in already challenged budgets to get the same results. So it's a concern.
Let me ask you about teachers. Teachers are, of course, the central component in effective education. In some places, the relationship between school boards and superintendents and the teachers union is adversarial. Some places it's cooperative. How would you describe it in Howard County, and how do you make it as cooperative as possible?
Yeah, I want to drift back a little bit. I always define myself as a teacher first and foremost who happens to be the superintendent of schools. I never forget my roots in a classroom, and I do everything that I can every day to keep that protection around our classrooms, to ensure that our teachers have whatever they need to provide the services for our students, because I can have the greatest vision in the world as a superintendent. The school board can support that, but if we don't have quality teachers every day running our classrooms, it goes by the wayside. We also acknowledge that we are in the process, we do have a process of negotiated agreements and our collaborations with our unions and our associations, and our labor management is critical as far as working with them in a very collaborative way. I've always worked in a very collaborative nature with our unions and our associations, because at the end of the day, they are trying to have the same goal to ensure that children are getting the same academic achievement, but also supporting their teachers. So we work in a very collaborative way. We don't always agree, I would say that, but we sit down and provide lots of conversation around what those common areas are and where we can provide assistance. Going back to the position I've said before, it's not an endless pot of money, and we have to define those priorities of how we advance teacher salaries, how we maintain the high level of competitiveness, because my concern right now as a superintendent, and it's a nationwide concern, is that we're experiencing a shortage of quality teachers, and we have to do everything that we can to provide quality pay, quality compensation, quality benefits, great working conditions in an area right now that's extremely competitive, and we're seeing a diminished number of individuals going into the profession. That data is alarming, and I think right now we're going to be talking about, we should be talking about at the national level how we can recruit more teachers into the profession, almost like the advancement of a call to action back in the 60s when they had the Peace Corps. We need to do something different now to get quality teachers, because the data is not there in terms of where I'd like it to be as far as the number of teachers going into the profession, and we're feeling it.
Interesting. So if you had an hour with the Secretary of Education privately to let off steam, offer your advice, what would it be?
Well, it's interesting because I've had those opportunities. As state superintendent, the last 3 secretaries of education I've had audiences with. And each time I've had those audiences, it's that particular topic that we just talked about. What are we going to do as a nation to encourage young people to go into the teaching profession? What are we going to do to incentivize? How are we going to work to recruit individuals to ensure that people see that teaching is a noble profession? It's one where you can have a high quality of life, that, you know, the competitive salaries. We need to do a better job, because if our classrooms are not populated with high quality teachers, there is a direct correlation as far as quality of the teacher, their abilities, in terms of the educational process for a young person. So the individuals that I work with in Howard County have a clear directive: never compromise our standards in terms of who we are hiring into our workforce. We want the very best teachers and never compromising it, because as soon as you start compromising quality, there's an absolute direct correlation in terms of the quality of education that's occurring with our children.
Dr. Michael Martorano, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you,
on
sir.
Dakhel Washington today.
Appreciate it.
هذا نصل إلى نهاية هذه الحلقة من برنامج داخل واشنطن. إذا كانت لديكم أي استفسارات أو تعليقات حول هذه الحلقة، وخاصة حول الدور الذي تلعبه المجتمعات المحلية في تعليم أطفالها، أرجو أن تراسلوني مباشرة على عنوان البريد الإلكتروني التالي insidewashington@elhura.com. معكم روبرت ساتلوف، شكرا لكم وإلى اللقاء.